Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? Mike's Custom Saw here. Tonight we got the 200t. Beautiful little saw on the bench. This thing is, I never reported this one. I increased the ignition timing by 5 degrees on it. Did a West Coast saw muffler mod on it. And that's about it. A little gem here. I bought it off my neighbor. He's just a homeowner, so it wasn't abused or anything. Inside cylinder and the piston, it looks beautiful in there. So, but it does need a carburetor rebuild, so that's what's on tap for this evening. So I'm gonna kind of walk you guys through how to do this. Pulling the carb off from the start, and then I've got the sonic cleaner heating up here, which just got up to temperature. So we'll pull the carb apart, throw it in the sonic cleaner, and then put it back together and rebuild this thing. So I'm going to zoom you guys in a little bit so you can actually see what it takes to get these carbs off these 200Ts. Alright, so hopefully you can see that pretty good. Try to keep my hands out of the way as much as possible. So first, of course, we got to take that air cleaner cover off. And then these air cleaners, they just pop out of there pretty easy. Put that aside. And then we've got the typical Stihl, they're either 8 or 10, 8mm, that's what they are, nuts on the carburetor. So we'll pull those off. Got my little magnetic tray over there, hold all those little bits of hardware. Okay, once you got those nuts off, now you got this plastic shroud here. Pull that off. It does have a little type of foam piece right in here. It stays pretty clean though, typically. So get that out of the way. Okay, so now we got the carburetor here, but to get that to that, well, to get to the throttle linkage, which is buried down inside here on the right side, we got to take the cold weather, warm weather vent out of here, and that's so that if it's cold weather, it allows cylinder heat to come up to the carb, so you don't get carburetor icing. So we're gonna pull that out, and then we're gonna pull this little piece of rubber out here. That's where your high, low, and idle screws are behind there. So let's go ahead and do that. I gotta walk over here, get a screwdriver real quick. Alright, just a little tuning screwdriver, super easy. Just a little flat blade. Spin that out. And there's your there it is. See, that's the cold weather setting where it's open, and then where it's closed. Try to get it in there. There you go. So that's where the blocks the heat for the summer. Put those into the magnetic tray, and then on this piece of rubber, the easiest thing to do is just take your finger or a screwdriver or anything like a scrunch, use a scrunch, and just push that right out. Okay, there you go. And that's your cover, stop dust from coming in there, and it's got the holes in it for your high, low, and idle. Put those over in there. Alright, I'm going to try to zoom you in a little bit here to get closer in on this carburetor so you can actually see where the choke lever is, and then down inside here is where the throttle lever is. So, okay, I hope that's close enough that we can see through the camera there. I already got the right down here is the fuel line. It goes, see if I can point to that, it's right there. I drained this thing out, the tank out, and then pop the fuel line off. Make sure that you either have low fuel in there or you pop that cap off when you take the fuel line off, or else you'll get pressure and it'll push fuel out that line. So I went ahead and just drained the fuel out of the tank so I could just pull that fuel line off. I did that earlier, so easy. Right here, this is your choke. So I'll actuate the throttle here. There's your choke. So that's the first thing we need to get off, is the choke, and that's super simple. Just kind of come in here, just pop it off. Really easy. Now, down inside here, I'm gonna try to get a light in here. Yeah, you see that kind of copper rod in there? That is your throttle. Does come out pretty easy. As you take the carb out, you got to kind of push on the side a little bit here, because this rubber piece will catch, and then your high-low jets will catch. So with the fuel line off, choke lever off, you can start to pull that carb out, and then work that fuel line out. I mean the throttle linkage out. So I got the carb out a bit here, and now I'm taking my finger and I'm just gonna push on that throttle linkage. There it goes, right there. That's it. There's my carb. And you can see the throttle linkage hanging out right here. And I just leave them right there. I grab a pick here. I just leave that throttle linkage hanging in there. It's just hanging onto the throttle plastic piece, whatever it is here, you know. And then I just leave the choke here. And if it's going to be open for any period of time, just want to put like either I sometimes use like rubber corks to put into the intake, or you could just take a clean shop towel or something like that, put it in the intake. This shouldn't be open for super long, and it's pretty clean in the shop here. So I'm gonna go over to the bench now, and we'll start taking this carb apart. And I've got a gasket kit to put in it, so it's pretty clean. It's not bad. It's one of the things I've been wanting to do on this saw. She started running lean on me, so I was using it, running great, perfect, and then started running lean. So, and it wasn't reacting well to adjustments on the jets. So I brought it back to the shop. I did a pressure vac test on it. Held perfect. It didn't even move on pressure vac. And so I'm like thinking, man, that's probably the original carb on there and the original gaskets. I've never rebuilt this one, so it's time to do it. So go over to the other bench and pull this carb apart, and then sonic cleaner is all heated up, and we'll throw all the parts in there, let that go for a while, and then put it back together with new gaskets, reset the jets the way they should be, and go from there. Okay, got the carb on the bench here. Man, it's chilly in here this evening. Had a big day of work today, so glad that's done. But yeah, it's I had to put the heater on for a while. It's been down in the 20s here up in Northwest Washington at night. It's cold, but anyway, it's good to be back working on some saws instead of some large vehicles. Love these small engines where I can sit here and work on them on a bench. I don't do this as a main gig. It's just kind of a hobby of mine, and I learned a lot off of the old YouTube, so I figured that it's time to give back, you know. So here we go. We're gonna pull this carb apart. First thing we got to do is pull this rubber piece off of here. not sure exactly what that is. I have to look that up on what Stihl uses that for. But that'll come off. And we got one screw at the bottom right here, and then four screws on this side, and then we'll pull our high speed, our low speed, and I'll probably leave the idle on there. So I've got, this is a OE. I'm gonna try to get that in the frame there. Trying to learn this here. This is a learning process for me, keeping it in the camera. It's interesting to work off the camera, but part number is 1129-007-1062 for the 200T. This is a OE gasket set, and then inside it's all of your it's your diaphragm gasket, and then your fuel pump, and then the two gaskets for on each side of the carb. So that's what comes in it. So we'll start pulling this thing apart. We got 4 screws here. Something to mention that these things are not super tight. I don't think this thing has ever been apart. They're all pretty even, but they are not super tight on there. Try to keep everything in frame here. Bear with me. I'm a newbie at YouTube, but you know, I've been watching the Tin Man for a long time. I appreciate everything he's put up there, and he's a trades worker like I am. I've been a mechanic my entire career, so I was in the fire service as a volunteer since the early 2000s, but went on to be a mechanic as a career. I never expected to get into the fire service other than the volunteer, but local department was looking for someone to manage their fleet, and I had the fire cert still, and so it worked out. Alright, so here's our diaphragm right here. That's going to be replaced. I'm going to pull that off here nice and slowly if I can. I know I'm not going to be reusing it, but it's still good to try to keep that in. Still good to not destroy it, right? May have to get my hands in there a bit. Sorry about that. It's coming up. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that thing actually feels really good. It's not, a lot of times it'll be crackly and all that. I mean, that thing doesn't have any crackliness. It's soft. Alright, so now we have the gasket underneath there, and I'm just gonna look at my gasket set here, make sure everything is matching up as I take it apart. That looks good. And then, sorry, I'm messing with this gasket set here. Alright, so those two match up pretty good. Alright. So we just take this off. That thing's being a bugger. I'm gonna get this gasket off, and then I'll get back with you. Alright, so as soon as I turn the camera off, the gasket just pops off. I mean, literally it just came right off. So gasket's off, and here we've got your needle. I'm not going to pull the needle out on this. I don't see the reason to do that. I think going through the sonic cleaner, usually when I put them in the sonic cleaner, I pull it all apart. I don't know. Maybe I might. I'm gonna go to the other side and take the diaphragm, the fuel pump diaphragm off, and do that first. I might come back here and take that off. So flip it over, and this is just one screw here. I'm gonna back that idle screw off so it doesn't interfere with the butterfly. And pull that screw out of there. Hold the cover. And there's some fuel. I can feel it coming out. And there we go. Okay. And now there's a screen down in here. You want to really take a look at that. Make sure that that thing is not plugged. Doesn't have debris in it or anything like that. They do pop out. You take a little pick and you can get in there and pull it out. On the full carburetor rebuild kit, you actually get a new screen. You can put a new screen in there. This thing looks pretty clean. I'm going to just take a little light here. Probably get dark on the camera, but I'm going to take a look at that screen. That screen looks great. Doesn't look like there's any debris in there at all, so I'll probably just throw it in the sonic cleaner just like that. So there's our fuel pump diaphragm, and I want to make sure that that is the same as the one in the kit even before I take it apart. And grab this out of here real carefully, and there's the kit one. It matches up. All the holes are in the right area. That's perfect. So that's good. And so again, so this one, you've got the gasket first off the cover. Well, there's the diaphragm right there if we're going this way. And then you've got the gasket. And again, I'm going to check that my gasket is correct. Let's see if I can get both of those in there. There you go. Sorta. Let's see if I can just, no, I can't lay them down, but I'm gonna flip it around. Well, they are the same. I can't get that thing to focus properly, but they are the same. So that's good. So I'll pull that gasket off of there, and that is a little crispy. That fuel pump diaphragm is definitely, it's got some crispiness to it. I don't know if you can hear that. Alright, I'm going to put those aside. So on the fuel pump diaphragm side, you've got your gasket, and then you got your diaphragm. On the other side, it's reversed. Alright, so put that piece aside, and now we're going to pull out, you got our high jet, and then your low jet. And I'm going to pull this high out. Looks clean. Nice sharp point there. And I'm going to pull my low out. Might be able to just spin this out. Yeah, I can. Alright, there it is. There's our low. Goes right in here. So I think I'm debating if I really need to pull that needle out of there. I think I'm going to leave it in this time. I'm going to throw the carb in whole like this. and I'll just blow it out real well with compressed air, because everything is looking pretty good on it except for that fuel pump diaphragm. That thing is you know, this one is really pliable, and this one, the old one, man, that thing is, it's crispy. So that may have been an issue with this thing. Okay, I'm gonna go throw this in the sonic cleaner. Got the carb out of the sonic cleaner. Came out nice and clean, as they always do. The sonic cleaners are absolutely amazing. One of the best tools that I've gotten for these little carbs. I ended up taking this needle and spring and lever out. I left it in the sonic cleaner in there, like in the carb in the sonic cleaner, and then periodically I always move the carbs around and everything, so if there's air bubbles inside there, they come out. And then I would take a little screwdriver and kind of push on this to allow the sonic cleaner to get down in there. But when I pulled it out, I actually took the screw out, took the lever out, took the spring and the needle out, and sprayed. I usually just use brake clean. Actually, Stihl recommends a brake clean instead of carb cleaner on their stuff. Brake clean the entire thing off and all the passages and everything in inside the where the needle and seat is, and then sprayed it out with compressed air to dry it all off and blow anything out. I don't have a needle for this, but looking at that needle, it does have like a circular indentation on the needle where it's sitting on the seat. Technically you're supposed to replace them if they do have that. I don't have a new needle, so I'm just gonna put it in. I know it's nice and clean. I did put some fuel in the screen area and then opened up the needle, and it held, it didn't leak down, and then when I opened it up it came out through, so I'm pretty sure it's good. So next step is just to start assembling this thing. And so here's the other, you know, one of the pieces here. This is for the diaphragm, and I try to keep that in there. They come out really good out of that sonic cleaner. It is pretty amazing. So try to keep this stuff all in and not get in the way of the camera there. So I've got my new gasket in, my new diaphragm right here. So it's on this side, it's a diaphragm first and then the gasket over the top, and there's an alignment pin on this cover, so I'm just gonna fit this thing on here and see what I can do. There we go. So just like that, and then that's gonna go right down onto the carburetor. So we'll just do that now. Okay, so that is fitted on there. Now I just got to get some screws in there. Magnetic screwdriver kind of messes you up sometimes. I'm trying to do this so that and not block it with my hands. It's somewhat challenging, that's for sure. There's one and there's two. Get third one in there. And then the fourth one in there. So key to remember is that it's the you got your diaphragm on the cover on this side, and then your gasket towards the carburetor. And it's the opposite on the other side, on the fuel pump side. It's your gasket on the cover, and then your fuel pump towards the carburetor. And I'm just snugging these up. Crisscross pattern, of course. Making them about even. Sure, Stihl has a torque value on there. Okay. So the next step is I've got my other cover here, the other side of the carburetor, and so I've got the gasket underneath here, and then I've got the fuel pump diaphragm right there, and there's alignment pins also on this one, on each corner, one here and one here. So just gonna flip that over onto the carburetor and get that center screw in there. There we go. I felt the alignment pins go in. Now I'm just gonna look at it and make sure that the fuel pump is looking good in there. Actually, I'm gonna lift it up here just to make sure. Okay, so there you can kind of see it. Oh, and it moved on me. Probably should have just left it alone. But if you see it there, you can see the little flaps that come open and closed to allow fuel to move through. And then there's little alignment pins on this guy on the corners. And so that is going to go on to there and all fit together just like that. That looks good. So I just take my center screw, put it in there. I'm going to tighten that guy up. I'll tell you what, this is you know, you do these things a lot, but it's a whole new ball game when you're trying to do it on a camera and film it. It's I heard Tin Man talk about that a bit, and some of our guys on YouTube, and it is it's challenging. It really is challenging. Okay, so my carb is together except for our high and low jets. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in. So I see if you guys can see that yet. So I'm not gonna, I'll run them in here a little bit, but I gotta look up what the spec is on them. It's probably 1 turnout, 1 1/4, something like that. So I'm just cleaning the tip off there. I did put those in on the into the sonic cleaner also. So this is the short one, is the low one. Get that thing spun in there and started. Spin that low jet in. There we go. Just kind of seating them in, and I'll just bring them out a bit. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not exactly sure where they need to be, so I'll get that afterwards. And then the last piece is just this little deal from Stihl. And that guy sits just like that. And there's our throttle. And then, well, here's our throttle right here, sorry. And then our choke right here. So that's it. I'm gonna look up the spec to get the high and low set, and I'll do that, and then we'll reinstall this onto the carb. or onto the chainsaw and see how things go. All right. Okay. All right. Back on the bench. Got off of work a little bit early today, so able to come out here and finish this thing up the other evening. I stopped the videos after just doing the rebuild on the car. We put it through the sonic cleaner and did the full rebuild on the gasket kit rebuild on the carb for the 200t. So I'm gonna zoom the camera in here and we'll put this carb back on. I did look up the spec through Stihl and put these needles back in, and it's one turn out from seated on each of them as a starting point. So yeah, we'll zoom you in and get this carb back on, fill it with some fuel, and then I'm going to go through the tuning process and show you the finished project. Alright, see you soon. Alright, so got you zoomed way in on that, on the carburetor here. Hopefully my hands won't get in the way, try not to, but anyways, here's our carb. So fuel port goes down, and then you have to kind of push out on this plastic to get it to go in. May have to kind of work it around because we got that throttle linkage rod that I got to work in there. So I'll try to stay out of the way, but it happens. It's kind of challenging sometimes. So I'm gonna put that guy on there. Gonna grab a pick and see if I can. Hopefully this is gonna still be in the camera. Try to keep it in the camera here. Once you get that rod in there, then you can slide the carb all the way down. There it is. So the rod is in there. I'm just holding it in there with my finger. I gotta move the choke rod out of the way and then get that carb slid all the way down in there, and I believe it's now just being held up by that plastic right here. So you gotta kind of pull that, there it goes, pull that plastic out. I'm double checking that my throttle linkage is in. It is in there, so I could actually hold my thumb on the carb and work that throttle linkage, and you can see it's hooked up and it's moving the carb, so we're good there. From here on out it's pretty easy. I mean, you gotta just put your choke linkage rod in there, so now the choke will operate properly. Then I'm going to come in here and get that fuel line on, and that thing you just got to kind of work on in there and push it up. I'm going to use, this is a Stihl tool, part number on it. You can kind of see it, what it looks like there. It's great for getting fuel lines on and off. Part number is 5910-890-4501. Try to show that there. Hopefully that'll show up. But it's nice and blunt tipped. You can use anything really to get it up in there. But it doesn't really have any sharp edges on it. Just try to get that fuel line up in there. Got it nice, it's started now. So I'm going to just try to take a scrunch in here. Push it up in there, but probably should have just put a little bit of assembly lube on there. Anything would have worked. Stihl actually does have a certain type of, they call it press seal or something like of that nature, that makes things slide quite a bit. These guys come in real handy, little forceps. You can get those guys in there if I can. I need to get another set of forceps. These are, I don't know where I got these things, but they've been really good. I need to get that thing up a little bit more. Kind of being a bugger to get up there, but yeah, that should be pretty good. I can't just caress it up a little bit more. I think when I got this saw, I actually replaced the fuel line. I know I did the fuel filter, and I'm pretty sure I did the fuel line also. So, alright, that seems to be up in there pretty good. So that's all that does. It just sits just like that. Excuse me. Okay, so we got our throttle linkage in, we've got our choke linkage in. So kind of just the reverse steps of before. I'm going to go ahead and throw this rubber plug back in for the high-low jet and the idle screw. That just fits right there. And now it's cold out here, so I'm going to put it in winter mode, so this open area will be in, so that it allows cylinder heat up into the carburetor area. And that guy just slides right in there. That also is kind of dual purpose, because when we screw it in, it'll hold this rubber piece in. Might be able to hear the roosters through the camera. I've got 3 roosters out there now. They are, we hatched 4 baby chickens this summer, and 3 of them turned out to be roosters. So I ended up with 4 roosters and got rid of 1, so I've still got 3 now. Alright, so moving right along, this carburetor shroud goes in next. That just sits right there, and then that's where your little 8mm nuts go on to hold that on, and then it also holds the carburetor on. Just use a T-handle wrench. This is a Stihl tool. Well worth the money for it. And just tighten those guys down. That's going to make the seal for the carburetor on intake and pull the shroud on. And then last is your air cleaner. Yeah, if I put it on the right way, it might be better. And these do kind of snap on in there. There you go. Let that camera come and focus again. You heard that snap, so kind of take it off, and then you can hear. I'll do it one more time so you can hear it. There you go. And then the last piece is, of course, the air cleaner cover. Just take a scrunch. There it is. I'll zoom you out and we'll talk about it a little bit. Okay, so that's putting the carb back on. So we went over taking the carb off the 200t, brought it over to the other bench, did the rebuild on it, threw it through the sonic cleaner, put it back together, and set the jets. It's one turnout after being seated on the needles, the high and low, and then the idle I just kind of screwed in a little bit. I did look at the spec on the Stihl from Stihl, and it is 2800 RPM for idle, and then you're looking at 14,000 for wide open throttle with the chain on. So I'm gonna throw some fuel in here, probably go outside, do a little tuning, let it warm up, do a little tuning on it, and I've got a tack that I'll put on it and get it all tuned up, and then bring you back. Okay, so I got the carburetor adjusted out. I went right to the Stihl spec on doing the carburetor right off of their manual. I did have to make a little adjustments, slightly only. I mean, I did it off the tack, so I guess I didn't really make any adjustments, because I did increase the timing on this by 5 degrees and put the open that exhaust up, put Gordy's West Coast Saw muffler pipe on there. So I just kind of went off what the yep, there's the roosters. You can hear the roosters. Anyways, I just went off of the tack, and then I went off the specs. So idle's at 2800 and wide open at 14,000. There goes one of our roosters. Amazing having those guys around here. That's all you hear. In the morning, it's crazy. Okay, I'm gonna fire this thing back up again. Might be a little bit warm still, but so should just fire right up, and then gonna make a couple cuts on it and see how she does. I think it's gonna be fine. So here we go. Well, there you go. She cut's beautiful. Good flake off of there. And I was putting it to the wood there. I mean, I was really pushing on it, and she just chugged along. So, love the 200t. Such a good saw. So, success. Good carb rebuild. Pretty easy. Anyone can do it. So, thanks for watching. Appreciate it, and I'll continue putting content out as I get saws through. And like I said, this is just kind of a thing I do as a hobby, and it's fun. I love it. Love cutting. Love working on saws. Thanks for watching again. Much appreciation.